Hello everyone and welcome to this webinar. I'm Tamara Pallas, the Project Manager in the Industry Partnerships ASES Accreditation Support Team. This is the first in a series of webinars about ASES that the Industry Partnership is hosting to support the SHS sector to transition to ASES accreditation. Before I go any further in introducing the webinar, I'd like to acknowledge and pay my respect to the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians of the land I'm now on. I would also like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of all the different Aboriginal lands the participants in this webinar are on today. I pay my respect to their elders, past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to the Aboriginal peers who are joining us in this webinar. This webinar will have a focus on ASES external assessors and the external assessment process. At some point, each SHS working towards ASES accreditation will need to engage an external assessor to support them to achieve accreditation and to assess whether they have met the accreditation requirements. We hope that by having a number of external assessors speak at this webinar, this will give SHSs a clearer idea of the role of the external assessor and the range of external assessors they are able to choose from. This webinar is being recorded and it will be shared on the Homelessness New South Wales website as soon as possible. It will then be available as a resource for anyone who is unable to attend today or who is attending but would like to look back at parts of the webinar they found useful. You will have the opportunity to ask questions not during the webinar itself, but afterwards by email. If you have any follow-up questions, please email these to our ASES support email address, which is asessupport@homelessnessnewsouthwales.org.au. And don't worry if you haven't got that down because it will be in the slides that we put up with the webinar. You can also send questions directly to any of the external assessors presenting during this webinar if you have questions for one of these assessors. We will post the contact details of the external assessors on our website alongside the webinar recording. Before we hear from any of the ASES external assessors, we will hear from our first speaker, Sue Sansom. Sue is the manager of the ASES team at the South Australian Department of Human Services. This is the department that developed and administers the ASES standards. Sue will talk about some of the benefits community sector organisations have experienced from becoming ASES accredited, and will also outline the role of the external assessor. I will now hand over to Sue.
Okay, I first of all would like to thank you for inviting me to speak to you today, especially at the beginning of your journey, the ASES quality journey. Because I have sat in your position when I worked in an NGO. And so I understand where you are coming from. I acknowledge everyone has some anxiety. Rest assured, this is normal. There is always a level of discomfort in any change management strategy. And believe me, ASES accreditation process is a change management strategy. There needs to be a level of discomfort to get to the new status quo. So I know at this time, accreditation is a goal that feels far out of reach. That is why we have piecemealed it and you are supported throughout this process. Let me just say that how we piecemeal it is by colour coding sections. In the evidence guide, we've broken down the topics into incremental blocks, and you have access to the Breaking New Ground tool that breaks this process down even further. And on this tool, there are progress bars, so you can see where you've come and how far or how much you need to do, and to divide these tasks and share this load, and to remember to celebrate each of these small achievements. But in striving for excellence, first consider why you are doing this. What is the purpose of adopting quality? Why is this important? Think beyond meeting funding requirements. What gets to the heart of your team and your people? We have asked this very question over the years to our organisations, and the prevailing themes are greater accountability to our clients, organisation wanting to reposition themselves within the sector, to mitigate risk, and to reduce long-term costs. Because this process is very important in gaining the client's real and authentic voice. Getting their say in how the organisation gains its strategic direction, how services are designed and delivered, and in turn, how are their needs understood and how is the service being responsive to those needs. One organisation realised in order to meet their growing community need and be sustainable, they needed to operate more effectively and use resources more efficiently. But they needed to communicate this key message at multiple times and in multiple ways. And for some people, they just couldn't see how this process could benefit them. There was a block or barrier for them. It wasn't until they were given the opportunity to share their issue of what was happening at the ground level did that organisation finally see what the key barrier was for them. And it was an IT system issue. But it was the frontline staff that came up with the improvement idea that they eventually adopted. And this made such a lot of difference to the ASES accreditation process and to the organisation itself. I also would like to tell you a story of one youth service, and they will acknowledge that they had many false starts because at the beginning ASES was rolled out voluntary. But when that compliance landscape changed, they made it a priority project. All the staff were involved. They too felt overwhelmed and wanted everything to be perfect. In fact, they produced over 150% of evidence. They were extremely nervous. The assessor's approach and demeanour relaxed everyone. The assessor identified and communicated the strengths that they had observed within the organisation, gave great advice, suggested system changes and taught them new ways of doing things. This same organisation, after achieving ASES accreditation, some months later experienced a terrible fire that took out the whole of their building on a Monday morning at 2 a.m. But this organisation was able to have services up and running the next morning, albeit in another venue, and this is because they had a well-executed business continuity plan. And that was only from the learnings of their ASES accreditation. So everyone knew their role and responsibility. They are now onto their 4th round of accreditation. They are now doing award level as well and gain confidence with each assessment. They are continually learning, changing and improving. And reducing costs in the long term, how can this be? Well, it's only when you have an incident where a client has died, or there's been some poor practice, or there's been fraud or corruption, and there's been a reputational damage as a result, where an organisation has identified these issues and has adopted ASES to make sure that it doesn't happen again. I could write a book of all the wonderful stories from organisations that I've captured over the years. The benefits and impact on your organisation are as varied and just as unique as you are. Most of the feedback talks in terms of using this process as a point of reflection, to have a helicopter view, It is an opportunity to streamline and consolidate your information, to prepare for succession planning and business continuity, and to give a sense of achievement for your staff to acquire vast skills during this process, and to review those policies and procedures and identify issues and any process changes. Many an organisation has found this process a good learning experience. It raises awareness for your board and volunteers what their roles and responsibilities are, and also inform them of the important work that you do. Use this as a vehicle to identify your new opportunities and gaps and good ideas. And it provides a formal structure for quality improvement and organisational learning. And one organisation, I remember, stated that ASES provided them with a framework. It was a necessary mechanism to evaluate how they were running as a business, and highlighted for them the need to operate in a more professional and corporate manner. They were morphing from paper-based admin office and moved to a computer database system. And there has been many organisations that have used the ASES accreditation to lever themselves for greater expansion and national reach. So I would like to just share with you a painting that has been done by a Ghana woman. And she was inspired to do this after her organisation gained the ASES accreditation. She was very proud of what her organisation had achieved. She herself learnt a lot, and this catapulted her into a new career. But it was a collaborative effort. And you can see in the picture the Star Service, the Star Excellence Star there, the Service Excellence Star, sorry. The painting depicts the collaboration between the organisation, its elders, industry partners, the external assessors and the department, all working together to create a ripple of positive change. So good luck, everyone. You can do this. It is achievable. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Sue, for that presentation. We're now going to hear from 7 different external assessors who've generously agreed to talk to us and give up their time today. There's a panel of ASES external assessors, and SHSs have a choice as to who they want to choose from the panel to work with their organisation based on who they think is the best fit. We hope that hearing from some of these assessors will help you to make this decision. The first external assessor who will be presenting is Alexandra Virtue from Total Quality Consulting. So I'll just hand over to Alexandra now.
And good afternoon, everybody. And thank you as well for inviting me to present today. My name is Alex, and I'm from Total Quality Consulting in South Australia. We're a new panellist with ASES, and we're actually really excited to be part of the program. We're passionate about quality and helping organisations become more effective. We love small organisations because they are able to change and adapt quickly, but we're also good at working with larger organisations who are transforming and need some leadership and navigation to get the wheels turning. I have an accounting background, being a CPA, so I specialise in governance and strategic planning and analysis, and have also been developing and auditing quality systems for a number of years. So I have an in-depth understanding of how best to implement the ASES standards to become an integral part of your organisation, rather than an add-on because you have to have it. ASES is a health check of your systems and processes, connecting your organisation's vision and mission to your customers, community, and other stakeholders. This is important to remember. It's the ultimate goal, connecting all the dots in your organisation and checking that the pathways between them all flow properly. The process. So, where do we start? The good news is that by being here today, you are already headed in the right direction. All you need to do is get a copy of the self-assessment workbooks and the evidence guide and get cracking. It doesn't need to be complicated, but it does require someone to drive it. Diligence and communication throughout your organisation. Setting up a task force right at the start and allocating responsibilities is important to keep your ASES journey on track. You don't need to book your assessment in at the very beginning. We really only need about 6 to 8 weeks notice before we physically do your assessment. But if it all looks a bit daunting at that point, then would be a good time to get in touch with a few panelists and see which might be a good fit to help give you some direction and guidance. Your assessment. The fees are set and based on the size of your organisation. The only other charges are travel costs, depending on which assessor you choose. Because we are located in South Australia, we would add the cost of any flights and accommodation to your assessment fee, plus a small administration charge, and a formal quote would be provided before locking in the assessment, so there are no surprises. If you are wanting to use an assessor as a consultant in developing your systems, they are a great resource. We would start by doing a basic gap analysis of your system for a fixed fee, generally a percentage of what your assessment fee would be to take into consideration the time required, and then an hourly rate thereafter. It's important to note though that an assessor cannot do both functions, i.e. if you engaged one assessor as a consultant, you would need a different panelist to do the final assessment. This is for ethical reasons. An auditor cannot audit their own work. And finally, ultimately, the ASES requirements and principles are designed to be integrated into your existing processes, and the goal is to improve efficiencies and effectiveness so that your clients can be assured they will get the assistance they need in a way that provides a really beneficial outcome for them. As an assessor, we want to see you succeed, and we are here to help. So if you have any questions or would like to get in touch with me, don't hesitate to shoot me an email. The details on the screen, and they'll be uploaded afterwards as well. So thank you again for your time, and I will hand back to Tamara.
Thank you so much, Alex, for that presentation. I'm now going to hand to our next assessor, and that is Fiona Loughlin, General Manager from the Institute for Healthy Communities.
We're really proud. In 2020, we're celebrating our 30th year of operations. We have been working with health and community services organisations Australia-wide for all of that time. We're a small not-for-profit business, and our focus is organisations like yourselves. Organisations that operate within the health, community and human services sectors across the country. We are independently accredited to work across multiple human services standards. It means that we're proud to have a really diverse range of clients, and our client base includes homeless shelters, services working to support domestic and family violence, women's shelters, child safety and protection organisations, disability service providers, alcohol and other drug services, residential rehabilitation services, therapeutic communities and Aboriginal community controlled organisations. We work with all types and sizes of organisations, and we don't discriminate. Our clients range from small individuals and partnerships right through to multi-million-dollar national enterprises. So we exist to support Australian health and community service organisations to continuously improve their systems to strengthen their business performance. We do this because we want to see safe, quality health and human services in all Australian communities. Like many organisations that operate within our sector, our values underpin everything that we do. Our values are passion, excellence, integrity and impact. One of the reasons that we do what we do is because we believe so strongly in the value of continuous quality improvement. Achieving ASES accreditation is a sign that your organisation is committed to continuous quality improvement. The benefits of CQI are numerous and they're tangible. It benefits your customers, it benefits your people. So in my view, continuous quality improvement, it's cultural. It's about cultural change. It's part of the fabric of the substance of the organisation. It's not about preparing for an audit. If continuous quality improvement is truly integrated within an organisation's culture, it will be evident in the values, the people, the systems and its processes. And what is even more meaningful to me is that the organisation's customers talk positively about their experience and the value that the organisation adds to them. So we have a lot of high standards for our assessors. We look for people who have worked within the sector. They have that really valuable sector experience. We believe that context is everything. If we understand an organisation's context, we can add that much more value. We require our assessors to have a base auditing qualification, and then we build on that base with a rigorous experiential development program. It generally takes between 3 and 6 months for us to get an assessor to a point where we allow them to work unsupervised. So that gives you an indication of how strongly we value experiential development. When we're looking to work with a new client, we match the background and the skill set of the assessor with the kind of organisation that they're going to be working with. The focus of the assessor is not to find out what you're doing wrong or point out what you're doing wrong. It's about highlighting and celebrating what you're doing well and helping you to focus your improvement efforts so that you're not spending a lot of really valuable time chasing your tail on something that's not going to achieve what you need at the end of the day. So the way that we work with clients, we would encourage you to start selecting a service, an external assessor to work with you around about the time that you're just about finished your self-assessment or when you've finished your self-assessment, and allow about 6 to 8 weeks before you want your assessment to occur. So select your assessor. We work through a client management arrangement. So we assign a client manager to work with you in the initial phases. And that's to get your assessment plan together and make sure that we're assigning the right assessor for your organisation. When we come to your site, the way that the assessment process works, you have an opening meeting with your governing body and your senior leaders. The assessor will want to interview staff, they'll want to observe your operations, they'll want to review documents and also interview service users with their permission. At the conclusion of the on-site assessment, again, your assessor meets with your governing body and your leadership team to talk about the findings and what you've done well and where you can focus your improvement effort. Following that, you'll receive a very detailed report about the findings and areas that you need to focus on. You should have no surprises when you receive your report from what was debriefed at the end of the on-site assessment. Before I conclude, I would say we have assessors in most states of Australia, including New South Wales. We are Queensland based. If we do need to travel somebody from another state to assess your organisation, we on-charge travel costs directly. We don't put any admin or processing margin on top of travel costs. And that's all. So thank you very much for your time and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very much, Fiona, for that presentation. I'll now hand over to David Stevens from Standards Wise, who's our next presenter.
Hello, everybody. So we're Standards Wise, supporting excellence in human services. And we look at the ASES standards as a beginning point, really much focused on your organisation going forward and continuing to grow and develop and reach the goals of the organisation, but importantly, provide outstanding outcomes for the people that you support. We would like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we all meet today, pay respects to elders past and present. We acknowledge the sorrow of the stolen generations and the impacts of colonisation on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. And we also recognise the resilient strength and pride of the Aboriginal community. And we have a number of symbols down the bottom of that slide that really talk about diversity and our commitment to supporting all people in relation to themselves and not discriminating, but celebrating their diversity and contribution to our society and community. We'd like to talk about our capabilities. So the principal assessors have been assessing using the ASES standards for over 15 years each, and that's been across a whole variety of organisations of all shapes and sizes across the whole country. It's been a privilege to be a part of this standards framework, to contribute to organisations, by sometimes supporting them to be assessed by an external panellist or being the external panellists ourselves. And the rewards for organisation we've seen over those years, when we've gone back through various cycles, is amazing to see how their growth and the development of the organisation and the outcomes for the people. We are New South Wales based. We do assessments across the whole of the country and also go overseas. And we do have a knowledge of the homelessness sector across the state. We have been a preferred choice associated with 4 of the pilot ASES assessments. I'd like to talk about what we actually do well, and we feel that we would provide your organisation in terms of an ASES assessment. So one of our mantras is to really help organisations go from good to what is exemplar practice across all areas of their operations, and help the organisation to understand at all levels what that looks like and how they can achieve that. And ASES is a great springboard for that to occur. We help organisations to strive for better practice, not best practice, but better practice in what they're doing. And that can be not just in the service delivery, but in the HR or in the finance or maintenance or risk management. It's really about how they can identify better practice, and through the ASES standards, it gives a great coverage of all the different aspects and dimensions of organisation to look for these opportunities for improvement and better practice. We clearly have a long history in conducting audits. The context of your organisation, your history, honouring the sensitivities and the particularities around your organisation are very important to us. We do hold the integrity of the audit process very dear, and to make sure that it's robust and that it's a learning process that's constructive, developmental, and leads to great outcomes. We have passion. If you can be passionate about audit, we are passionate about that, about our role in contributing to improve quality management systems across organisations in Australia and overseas. Our values are that we respect and celebrate diversity. So that cultural safety for us is very important, that all people deserve respect to be treated with dignity, and that we validate the rights and voice of those most unable to speak for themselves. So in all that we do, these values are very important to us, and they come out in the way that we select, we recruit and select assessors who work for us, in how we approach the audit process, how we support organisations to make sure that we always keep true to those values. Essentially, we're a company focused on helping organisations and people to understand and then see compliance for human service standards in Australia and overseas. This is for the certificate award level in this case. It is very much about beyond those standards rather than focusing on them. They are an opportunity to continue to improve, to develop, to benchmark. we work in a very similar way to assessing organisations, in that we will provide support in the beginning and clarity around the self-assessment process, how you organise your evidence, whether there's a need for you to engage a separate independent consultant to support some of your activities, and then leading up to the on-site assessment, where there's a very careful process in working through with you what are going to be the logistical practicalities, the actual costs. So we have much reduced costs in New South Wales being based there. And then, you know, what's going to happen afterwards in terms of the report and the ongoing process through ASES accreditation. We'd like to hear from you. We think that this is a great opportunity for the homelessness sector in New South Wales to move even further forward from the great work you've been doing. Thank you on behalf of Standards Wise.
Many thanks, David, for that presentation. Our next presentation will be from Tamara Stojanovic. She is from Assessments, Quality and Performance, or AQP. Tamara was unable to be with us in person today, and so she submitted a video presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are Tamara Stojanovic and Joe Klein, presenting for Assessments, Quality Performance, AQP. We would like to thank the Industry Partnership for the opportunity to present today. A little bit about us. We are an assessment and consulting firm based in Sydney. We've been in operation since 2011 and on the ASES approved assessor panel since 2017. We're a non-profit organisation with a key focus on social justice. Our key goal is to support and develop community-based organisations which provide services to disadvantaged individuals, families and communities through education and capacity building.
We welcome the opportunity to develop our relationship with specialist homelessness services. We began working with the sector in 2018 when AQP was selected by the IP to develop the ASES support modules, which are now completed. We worked with the 10 SHSs from across the state on this project. These services provided invaluable practice perspectives that informed the development of the modules.
They also shared various tools such as ASES project plans and client consultation resources that they developed in the course of undertaking their ASES accreditation. We have since been engaged by a number of SHSs to undertake their ASES external assessments. We are pleased to be continuing to build our knowledge and understanding of the sector through that process.
The IP has asked us to address 4 topics today. First, our approach to assessment. Second, our specialisation. Third, our view about when it's best to engage an external assessor. And 4, the pricing of travel costs.
Our overall approach is collaborative, evidence-informed, with a focus on quality improvement and organisational growth. Our focus is person-centred, with an enduring perspective on the experience and well-being of the client. Our assessors are experienced community services practitioners and managers with tertiary qualifications in social sciences. We focused on providing education and clarification about the standards at the outset and some months before the site visit. What this looks like is tailored on the needs and preferences of each service. Some services like a more formal approach, such as us holding workshops with the staff and the board. Others like a more informal approach, such as regular catch-ups with us to address questions that arise during their self-assessment. We include all the pre-assessment work and site visits in our pricing.
We provide step-by-step guidance with the process of assessment from our first contact with you until you have received your accreditation certificate. We encourage the early engagement of all levels of the organisation, the board, management, staff, partners and most importantly, clients. We continue to offer pro bono support with quality improvement 18 months post-accreditation. Specialisation. We work with all types and sizes of organisations. We have experience in a wide range of disciplines, including domestic violence, homelessness, child and family services, youth, disability, and aged care services. We are also experienced in other accreditation systems and cross-standards recognition.
So when should you engage us? As a general rule, earlier is better than later. Services have engaged us from 5 to 15 months before their site visit. It depends on the needs and preferences of each individual organisation. Smaller services with fewer quality systems tend to prefer a longer lead time than larger services which have more advanced quality systems and other accreditations. Before we sign a contract with you, we will ensure that your assessment readiness is commensurate with the planned date of your site visit, and we will support you with making that decision. You're welcome to give us a call to discuss your time frame.
Travel costs. Being Sydney-based, we don't charge any travel costs for external assessments in the Sydney metropolitan area. Outside the metropolitan area, we charge an at-cost fee for travel and accommodation.
AQP are a good fit for you if you value an approach and pro bono services that focus on education, capacity building and growth. If you would like an individualised, tailor-made support throughout your accreditation process and beyond. If you prefer a New South Wales-based provider. If you're looking for a not-for-profit service. And if you value our experience in the New South Wales homelessness sector. For more information, you are welcome to contact us by phone. You can book us for a free information session about ASES accreditation. We are also currently developing a range of webinars and tutorials on ASES. And to register your interest in participating or in accessing these recordings, please visit our website.
Thank you for your participation, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thanks to Tamara Stojanovic and Joe Klein for that video presentation. I'll now hand over to our next presenter, Scott Way from BDO Industrial and Organisational Psychology.
Oh, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me. I'll just give you a short overview of the services provided by BDO. To begin with, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners on our land and your land and their connection to land past and present. BDO is a firm of chartered accountants and business advisors who service all of Australia. In fact, BDO is a global firm, and we're based in Adelaide, and we provide consulting services throughout Australia, New Zealand and Asia principally. I mention BDO partly because of its size, and I think the benefit that it provides those of you in the homeless sector is that you're dealing with a large and well-established and reputable firm. As you can see, we have a mountain of resources available to you depending on where your audit might go and what we uncover. I look after the industrial and organisational psychology team, and in fact we started our business 20 years ago this year, although I've been consulting for some years prior to that. Psychology, as most of you would be aware, is the study of human behaviour, so we look at quality behaviours, and our aim is to change the behaviour of you and your colleagues so that they start to understand and become comfortable with applying some sound quality practices, which in turn are sound business practices. We've worked with a number of organisations over the years, a full range from large and small councils, aged care, corporates, not-for-profits, and we've put in their quality systems and services in that time. Prior to consulting, I came out of the disability sector, and I should have mentioned, in fact, some of our clients here in South Australia are in fact homeless services, and we worked with platform use services to recently put in their ASES accreditation. We are also more than just an auditor, so as you can see on the screen there, we provide a range of services. The reason I mention that is that I think it's important to see how systems are applied, and one of the reasons we moved into the quality sector some years ago was that we saw organisations that were quality accredited but still performing poorly, when we would do a review, and that sort of juxtaposition, that paradox was significant. So we see, yes, the audit that you go through is an audit, there's no doubt about that, but importantly, we see it as an enterprise building exercise. And we're trying to impart the reason, the rationale, the good practice, if you like, of adopting the ASES standards, which I think are an excellent guide to becoming a better service and a better practice. What does that mean? Well, it means enhanced services to clients. It means smoother systems for you and your colleagues, but it also means greater confidence for the funder that might be providing you with funds, whether that be a government agency, a fundraising process, a benefactor. All of that means that whoever is handing over funds to you are satisfied that in fact they're dealing with a sound and reputable organisation. How do we go about our work? Well, because we're all of our staff are registered organisational psychologists, I should point out, which means we're bound by the practices, if you like, and the ethics of the Australian Psychological Society. We have to be registered and maintain our professional development points annually. We're also members of the College of Organisational Psychologists as well. And so we're very much focused on the interface between people and the organisation. In broad terms, most audits take between 3 and 5 days. And our strong advice would be that as soon as you decide to go down the ASES path, we would strongly recommend an initial meeting with whoever you may choose. Why do I suggest that? Well, the evidence guide and various associated documents has a bunch of information and descriptors that are relevant for us and may not be so relevant for you. So it's important that we go through that with you to make sure that you're comfortable with what those terms might mean, and in fact what documents you might be able to provide. We have seen a number of organisations who've gone off on their own, collected a mountain of information, a lot of it in fact not really helpful, to be honest. A lot of work and time and effort was invested for no great return. So please contact us early. Then we will let you be to undertake your initial assessment and preparation, and that could be anywhere between a month and 3 months, depending on the maturity of your organisation. And what we're looking for, the holy grail for us, is what's known as data convergence. Data convergence is where we're receiving inputs from those that we might meet with, which could be board members, managers and key staff. We'll undertake our own independent desktop review, a little bit harder at the moment with COVID, so we can do some of that remotely and have done so for platform. Similarly, with a site visit, we'd love to do a site visit, hopefully when border restrictions are removed. The point being is that we're looking for evidence that points in a consistent direction. We will then, if you like, assess that information to determine its appropriateness to the particular quality standard, and then write a detailed report, and we'll conduct an exit debrief with you and your key folks, board members, key staff. And as I said earlier, what we're trying to achieve is an understanding of the good reason, the good practice in actually doing some of these sorts of things. Now that could be through regular policy review to ensure that policies align with practice. Organisations are organic and change and grow and develop. It could be that the KPIs are appropriate for what's being measured, because the adage, what gets measured gets done, is very true. It might also have to do with aligning the needs of the users or consumers with the service that you provide. And again, that can be a challenge. What might excite you may not necessarily excite a user or a stakeholder. So that debriefing process ensures that there's an understanding of what the information is left with, that you're left with, and then you've got time then to work with your colleagues to address some of those. That becomes part of a quality improvement plan, and then we reappear 3 to 6 months later to see how you've gone with that exercise and to undertake the final assessment. The benefit of that process, and again the total time could be 3, 4, 6 months, it is in part educational. Yes, it does satisfy the standard, but also leaves with you hopefully a lasting legacy of understanding why it is you would do some of these things that up until maybe the start of the audit sounded like either business speak or some sort of strange language, when in actual fact will strengthen your organisation and its service delivery. I should also point out, as I've done in part already, we are registered psychologists, so that means that we have to be registered with APRA, and our staff members are part of APS as well. Interestingly, we are also audited, and I'd be reasonably confident we'd be one of the few organisations, quality auditors, who in turn are audited. So we are audited annually by BDO internationally, and what that means is we have to satisfy very similar frameworks to those that we're asking of you. That means that our practices are tried and tested and proven to the point where in fact our work is unconditionally guaranteed. If you don't like it, then don't pay for it. So what we're trying to do is we practice what we preach, and we strongly believe in it and have done so, as I said, for well over 20 years. It's been a pleasure to speak with you. Contact details are to follow. Please feel free to reach out and have a chat. Happy to have a phone conversation with any of you. One final thing whilst I remember it is one of the benefits, I think, of being based in South Australia, apart from our fees being based in South Australia rather than Eastern Seaboard rates, is that when we come to do work in your area, we're solely focused on you. Rather than being split between jobs, as we did with Platform. And as a consequence, we immerse ourselves in your business and in the quality process. It's a far more efficient way to work. So very much a win-win. Our costs, by the way, are charged at cost to you. Anyway, thank you for your time, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you, Scott, for that presentation. I'll now move on to our next speaker, Marie Davidson from the Highwire Group.
Hello everyone, thanks Lucia. I don't have a fancy PowerPoint for you, not that I can't get fancy with a PowerPoint, I thought at this time of the day you might prefer a face. So here it is, and welcome to my office. I'm in Port Macquarie, I'm lovely Biripi country, and it's great to be with you. Thanks so much to Lucia, Tamara and Gemma for putting it together, and for everyone for joining in. I hope you've got some coffee in your cup. It's getting towards that slumpy time of the day. But let me see if I could excite you and engage you in the passion that I have for accreditation that I'm hoping to leave with you, a little bit of that feeling. My name's Marie, and I'm Managing Director of a thing called the Highwire Group. And basically we're a bunch of consultants that love to work with the health and community services sector, and we have been doing that since 2009. And I'm happily now based, and the business is based in Port Macquarie, so I'm feeling like that's a really good launch-off spot for the rest of New South Wales. And I've had a long career managing housing and homelessness services. I won't tell you when it began, that will give far too much away, but I worked initially as a youth homelessness support worker under the SAP program. That'll give you some idea how old I am. I then went on to manage transitional housing services in the east of Victoria, and then went on to manage long-term housing in the Gippsland region for a very, very large affordable housing company. And I did that for about 11 years. I loved it, and I got quite close to some of the Aboriginal communities down there in the Gippsland area, which gave me the passion that I have now for working with Aboriginal organisations, which I'll tell you about in just a moment. I'm particularly proud of the work that I've done to develop new housing in my housing career, and I've always tried really hard to keep a bit of a finger in the pot when it comes to supporting housing and homelessness. To that end, I worked closely with the South Australian Peak Body for Community Housing as one of their trainers, so I really enjoyed that role. My approach, I've been working with the Service Excellence Standards since 2008, So that's a while now, and I've done lots of assessments across Australia. I've also worked as a supporter of organisations, like a coach, accreditation coach, during that time as well. So I really enjoy both hats. And so when I was asked to talk to you about my approach to being an assessor with the ASES standards, I really had to reflect on, you know, my personal philosophy about accreditation, and I actually see that it's good for you. I've always thought accreditation was good for you, and I've had some good stoushes with people, and particularly people on boards and leaders in community services saying, well, you know, we just think it's a government stick and a hoop to jump through, and I have worked hard at trying to convince people around to my way of thinking. And I see it more than a regulatory stick or a carrot or a must do. I always reflect on the story of the three little pigs. I'm sure you know it. Three little pigs, there's a wolf, there's some varying approaches to quality housing, there is some huffing and puffing, and there's a house that stands and there's some houses that fall over. I know you know the story, and I'd like you to think about your organisation as a house that needs to be really strong, because I think that you know that there are some wolves at the door. I'm glad we're not using the chat function, because I'd probably get you to tell me who you think the wolves at the door are, but there's a lot of people trying to shake the structure of your service and to weaken it at times, and it can really feel like that. So I see accreditation as a really strong framework. So like any strong house, it's about the framework. And the framework that Service Excellence offers you is something to hang all of your good practice on, and also gives you an opportunity to focus on where you can see those gaps. So the cycle of 3 years says, right, where are we strong? Where do we need to focus? And you've got a structure for that. So, you know, I kind of like the idea of the efficiency of that and some certainty that that gives your organisation, it gives you clients, gives you community, gives you funders. So I suppose that, you know, it ticks one of those boxes. And at the end of the day, I think accreditation and equality, you know, and a good approach to quality is about keeping everyone safe. You know, keeping your organisation safe, your people safe, your community safe, your money safe. So if you think about it like that, you get a sense of how I think about it, and that really flavours up my approach. So this is how I like to roll. I would like you to engage me or any assessor nice and early, because there's a lot of good work that we can do. We can build a relationship. We can start, I can start to understand the unique context of your organisation. You know, what's special to you, what are your goals, where are you heading, and what sort of quality systems do you need to be able to get there. Now, I'm going to be assessing you against the 98 requirements across those 18 standards, but I really like to understand the context in which you're operating. So I like to get together with you nice and early. In that part of the process, we can have some face-to-face visits. We're certainly very good at using technology now. We've got some project planning checklists and templates that we can use in addition to some of those great resources on the Industry Partnerships portal. In the next phase, when you're getting ready to do your self-assessment, I can give you lots of guidance about evidence gathering, you know, the volume of evidence, the quality of evidence, and ways to engage your team and getting them ready to participate in accreditation. And we can also talk about how you might engage external stakeholders, such as partners and clients, in the appropriate way. When I'm on site, my role is very, very clear. I need to verify that what you've put in your self-assessment is what is actually implemented in practice, and that those 98 criteria are met. And I need to identify strengths. I need to talk to you about the first few steps that you could go through in order to meet any gaps or to implement any improvements that I might offer you. So I think having a relationship nice and early will definitely help with all of that. After the assessment, my belief is feedback is really important. And I use the opportunity before I leave your site to deliver a bit of a presentation, I suppose. I do take it seriously, and I present back themes that I've identified, both strengths and opportunities for improvement. And what I'm trying to do there is get as many people in the room who are going to be involved in helping to drive some of the improvements going forward over the next 3 years, and to build on the momentum that's been developed through all of your effort to get ready for that that point in the quality journey, the accreditation. So getting people excited about keeping on going with continuous improvement, I think we have our best opportunity there when we're having a good feedback session. And I get good feedback about that anyway. Do I specialise? Yes, I do. I like to work to my strengths. I like to be in my sweet spot as often as I can, and so do the other assessors that work on the team with me. We've got 2 new assessors coming on in Newcastle actually to help to get across the state, but I love to work with regional and remote services. I think that I can have a really good impact there, and I know from my own work experience that that's where a lot of the least amount of resources are, and probably where the highest need is. And oftentimes people don't get out there, you know, you don't get consultants and assessors and professional development coming out there. So I spend 80% of my time on the road in the regions and getting as remote as I possibly can. My business is set up for it. I've got a purpose-built vehicle, and I've got a way of working on a regional approach with developing relationships with clients, both as an assessor and as a consultant. During COVID, I've been using technology to stay in touch with people. The other day we ran a service excellence information session for 80 people. 80 people were able to join in. So I'm taking advantage of everything that we have on offer at the moment, not so much challenges, but actually opportunities to engage a lot of people in the team and getting on board and helping with service excellence. So lots of tips there. We can use technology even to do parts of the assessment now. So if you want to get going, you don't have to wait for travel restrictions like I do. You can get going with the technology if you want to engage with us. We feel positive about that. But soon I'll be hitting the road. As soon as Gladys says we can go, as soon as some of those travel restrictions are reduced, I am off and I'd love to come and visit you. So if you'd like to have a visit, please get in touch by the usual channels. I'm very happy to help in any way. So what will I leave you with? I will leave you with this thought. Well, no one can ever make accreditation easy and fun. I do love it when people say to me, oh, that wasn't nearly as scary as I thought it was going to be. So I'll leave you with that little thought, and I look forward to hearing from you, even with a question or with a comment or with an opportunity for us to meet face to face. Good luck on your quality journey.
Thank you very much, Marie, for that presentation. While accreditation may not be something that can be made easy and fun, you are the second assessor who's mentioned a passion for it. So I think the assessors are in the right occupation.
Hi, I'm Wayne Turner, and I'm the Principal Consultant of Kajibi Consulting, a consulting firm based in Adelaide, South Australia. We provide consulting services to the not-for-profit sector. We have been doing so for the last 10 years or thereabouts, with a strong emphasis on the ASES accreditation process. So I've been involved in providing ASES assessments at both the certificate and award level during that period of time. Recently, we have strengthened our capability in undertaking ASES assessments with an additional 2 accredited ASES assessors being added to Kajibi Consulting's capability. Both of those ladies have strong skills in human resource management and labour-based activities within organisations. I bring skills in the areas of strategic development, policy development, business planning, governance, risk management, and practices and processes more generally within organisations. The Kajibi Consulting approach to ASES assessments is probably focused on 2 main points. One is that we are values driven, and we are always seeking to assist organisations achieve the values and aspirations that they have in meeting their stakeholder and client needs more generally. And secondly, we interact with organisations with 3 or 4 key aspects in mind. One being that our interaction is respectful, we're looking to have inclusivity, being personable, and also in having empathy with the organisation and the way that you work and the environment in which you operate. As an example, I guess, the sorts of organisations that we have been involved in include, in these sorts of loose groupings, arts and disability services, children and youth services, community centres, disability aged and home-based services, health and education, homelessness, which is of specific interest to yourselves, humanitarian services, and larger organisations that have a range of complex or multiple service offerings, and then others that are in the legal environment as well. As management consultants, we've been operating for over 30 years and provide a wide range of consulting services to organisations. And as part of that, we have worked fairly closely with a number of DV organisations in South Australia, and that sort of work has included conversations around mergers, around governance and practices and processes within their within their own organisations. A question that's often asked is, when should an assessor be engaged and how should that engagement work? I guess from your own perspectives, once you're registered to undertake an assessment and you have gone through the processes of identifying the assessor that you wish to have undertake the assessment, you should undertake that engagement with the assessor as early as possible to get an understanding of what the assessor would be looking for, as well as for the assessor to get clarity around the focus of your organisation, the scale, complexities, and any other matters that may affect the context and also the process of undertaking the assessment. Also, it's a way of asking some questions of the assessor in regard to some of the evidence that you may be producing, and for the assessor to also make some comments about the type of evidence that he or she would be looking for as part of validating that you are actually meeting the requirements within the ASES standards. Those conversations should be undertaken as early as possible, leading up to the formality that goes with the assessment process. Another key question is, given that I'm located in South Australia, is the matter of travelling costs and accommodation costs. I'm currently undertaking some work with some New South Wales organisations, which is being done as a desk-based exercise. So information and evidence is being electronically provided to me, and we're undertaking the processes that way. And we'll be using video conferencing as well to have conversations about how things are working within the organisation. There may be times when a visit is required. I'd be looking to defray costs as much as possible by possibly having multiple assessments being undertaken, so that the travelling costs can be shared amongst organisations where assessments are being undertaken. Please feel free to refer to the Kajibi Consulting website, which is kajibiconsulting.com.au, and you'll find other details of the work that we undertake, and also there's a drop-down menu on ASES assessments as well, with a list of the organisations that we have undertaken assessments for, as well as the fee base that applies as part of the work that we undertake. So thank you for listening to us, and goodbye for now.
I'll now hand over to our last external assessor presenter, and that is Alison Sinclair from Alison Sinclair Consulting.
Hello, lovely to be here with you today. I'd like to start by just acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land. I'm on Kaurna land, and I pay my respects to their culture, their people, and the elders past, present and emerging, and to all of those traditional custodians across the country. It's lovely to have an opportunity to speak to you, even though we can't see you. Hopefully you get a bit of a feel for who we are. I thought I'd start out by being the last speaker. I'll make this fairly quick, but a little bit about who ASES is, Alison Sinclair Consulting and Associates. We're a bespoke and responsive group who've been working in this space for many years. Also, to tell you a little bit about Alison Sinclair Consulting, I've recently established myself in my own company with associates, but I have had a long history with service excellence, being an assessor with the of ASES since when it was piloted in 2001. I previously worked for Highwife or with Marie for a long time, and prior to that with QIP and with Quality Management Services, undertaking assessments. So I have worked with the department around this space for very many years. I've got 25 years experience working in and with community sectors and standards, so a variety of standards across many different sectors. I've worked with small, medium and large organisations across all the states and many service types. So that's just a little bit about me and the Alison Sinclair Consulting. The way I work in working with organisations is really to meet with people and listen to their needs, learn about their organisations and work with the organisation and with the people that I engage with to understand your organisation. So it's very much a building a relationship that helps me to understand you and helps you to understand where I'm coming from and what I'm looking for. So the first part of the process, I've tried to make this fairly simple because it's the last presentation. So as other people have said, but for me, it's really important to engage early for various reasons. The main one being that you're able to ask questions and I'm able to develop that relationship. I like to work with a key contact person or sometimes a couple of people, so we're able to communicate about the various processes along the way. So during this getting to know you phase, I'll gather some preliminary information from you. Sometimes even before that, we'll have some teleconferences and discussions with various people in the organisation. Certainly discuss your main concerns and in terms of going forward with your accreditation, where you're at, how much experience you've had, and talk about your planning processes, how you want to get where you're going. I also provide you with information about ASC, and we talk about who the best assessor will be for you and how we'll progress to the next phase. So step 2, from my point of view, is working with you to get ready. Part of that process is you'll be doing a lot of work on your self-assessment. As I said before, the earlier you engage the assessor, and I think a number of people have said this, the easier it is for us to answer questions about the issues that you might have. We'll determine what your preferred assessment time is, so how far out you want your assessment, clarify any issues or questions, and you can speak directly to your assessor. That process isn't about beginning the assessment process, that's just answering any questions or queries or areas of confusion that you may have. The next part is developing your assessment timetable and working with the scope of your assessment to determine who should be interviewed, whether we need to do site inspections, and then work out, therefore the number of days and the timing of your how long the assessment's going to take, but also ensuring that the people who are going to be interviewed are starting to get ready, that know who and how they're going to be interviewed. So we've got options of group interviews, interviews by phone, interviews with individuals, or interviews via Zoom or other technology that enabled us to do those interviews remotely. So that's the getting ready stage. So the step 3 is where we actually do the assessment, and as other people have said, that assessment is about looking at documentation. We try and do a lot of that off-site where possible, and that might be through your BNG portal, or it might be through another technology that enables us to look at your documentation and evidence remotely. Then we conduct interviews. Another key part of the process, and those interviews include consumers, service providers, staff, volunteers, board members, CEO, senior management. All of the interviews are tailored, the nature of the interviews are tailored to your size and the scope of your organisation. So it really is an opportunity for us to sort of work out, hold the mirror up to the organisation. We see documentation, we listen to people, and we visit sites where that's required, additional sites, and we consider all of that and apply our understanding from that to the standards and the requirements of the service excellence standards, either certificate or where appropriate award as well. We then give you your draft report, you have an opportunity to give feedback, and you get your final report, and then your quality action plan if that's required. If you have additional requirements before finalising your accreditation, then we'll work with you over a period of time and make sure that that's achieved within the 6-month process. So that's in brief, the assessments side of things. So I just thought I'd finish with a few quick tips. People often ask, what are the standards and requirements getting at? And you know, some of them are obvious and some of them are not. I encourage people to use your evidence guide as a guide, but not as a prescription. So the evidence guide will show you all sorts of things that you might provide as evidence, but not every organisation will provide all of those things. And some of you won't provide any of them, but you'll find something else that is unique to your organisation that represents your ability to achieve that requirement. You know your organisation best, and the evidence guide is a good framework to help you, but trust your own judgment as well. I also get asked how much evidence is enough. You know, 1 to 2 examples of evidence per requirement is really sufficient. If we need more, we will ask and use interviews and observation to supplement. It's not all about the paperwork. It's about weaving the documentation with the people and the observations to give us a good understanding of how things are working and to allow us to hold that mirror up for you. Next slide, please. The last 2 points I'd make is that who should be involved in the assessment, and I encourage you to involve all levels of the organisation. Don't leave it to one person. Use information sessions and we can help with that. Working parties, existing structures and committees. You don't have to necessarily set up new structures if you've got processes and systems in place that you can already use. Make it work for your organisation, but don't leave it to one person. Will this improve things for clients? A lot of people who work in community services do so because they're passionate about doing, improving services for clients, making things better for the community. And this process is a real opportunity. It's not an imposition, although, as others have said, it sometimes feels like that. But if you see it as an opportunity, the benefits will be evident. Clients, staff, management, board will all benefit from a strong, resilient, sustainable organisation that focuses on good client outcomes. And that's what we come to work for by and large. My background is also in community services, and I moved through the process of working as an assessor and in working within organisations to prepare them for assessments in relation to a range of different standards. So I've worked on both sides of that coin, and it's really exciting when you work with organisations and see the fruit of their labours come to fruition in a really strong, resilient organisation. And that's what drives me and makes me excited about working in this space. So I hope that I generate that enthusiasm when I'm on site working with the organisations. It's certainly a lot of the feedback I get, and a lot of the reason people work with us in doing these assessments, because we like to make a difference. It is not a threatening process. We work alongside people. So we see ourselves as partners in this process. Next slide, which I think should be the final one. Thank you for listening. As I said, I've worked in this space for many years. I think probably longer than most, and continue to see the value of it. So if you're interested in talking to me about an assessment, I'm based in South Australia. I do negotiate travel costs depending on the scope and size of the organisation, and run presentations for you, for your board, for your staff, remotely if that's of value, and certainly was in the organisation that I did last year. We did a lot of information sessions. So please, I prefer to work on give me a call, let's have a chat, and we can talk about what your needs are. I'd really love to hear from you, so thank you.
Thank you very much, Alison, for that presentation. That was the last of our presentations from the external assessors. As I mentioned earlier, their contact details will be up on the Industry Partnerships website, and so you'll be able to contact any of them directly if you'd like to talk to them after seeing what they've had to say today. I'm just going to start my video now because I am going to present the Industry Partnerships ASES update. So as I mentioned at the beginning, I'm a project manager in the ASES support team with the Industry Partnership. I work with Lucia Dufresne, who's been so capably managing all the tech for the webinar and helping out when people are striking problems with sharing their screens. You can contact us at the email address on the screen, asessupport@homelessnessnewsouthwales.org.au, and this slideshow will be up on our website as well, so you could refer to that email address. In this presentation, I'll cover the ASES resources for the SHS sector that the Industry Partnership has developed and also that DHS makes available. I think I'll start referring to the Industry Partnership as the IP from now on, although I'm not that fond of acronyms, but Industry Partnership is a bit of a mouthful. So the second topic we're going to cover is recent updates from the New South Wales Department of Communities and Justice, and also the South Australian Department of Human Services regarding ASES. And finally, I will talk a bit about the support the IP is delivering to the organisations that filled out the ASES Expression of Interest survey. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that survey if you're not aware of it when we get to that part of the presentation. So firstly, let's look at the ASES resources for the SHS sector. I'm aware that there are quite a few organisations in the sector that now know about these resources. So apologies if this goes over ground you're already aware of. The reason that I'm covering it is the last time I presented to the sector on these resources was at the sector network meeting in November last year, and at that stage only the very start of the resources had been put up on our website. So I would just like to run through what's there now for people who haven't heard about them since then. Firstly, we have the ASES support modules, and these are 8 online support modules currently available on the IP's website. We think that they're the best place to start for SHS's beginning the ASES preparation journey. That's because each module includes step-by-step guides to help you understand the accreditation process if this is the first time you're coming into contact with it. It's a good idea to start with the how-to guide at the beginning of each of the modules, and then the module content after that will make a lot more sense to you. The ASES support modules were developed by an ASES external assessor that we hired as a consultant, and they also were developed with input from the 10 ASES pilot organisations. And the ASES pilot organisations were the SHSs that started ASES accreditation a year before the rest of the sector, and they gave us some input about what type of resources would be most helpful to them in going through ASES, and so that input has been incorporated into the support modules to tailor them to the needs of the SHS sector. There are some resources available that DHS, the South Australian Department of Human Services, has published. They support your organisation through the self-assessment process, which is the first stage in preparing for ASES accreditation. And there are 2 different resources. There's the ASES Certificate Level Evidence Guide, which sets out each ASES requirement and tells you what type of evidence can help to show that you meet that requirement. And then there's the ASES Certificate Level Workbook that allows you to fill out the evidence from your organisation that would meet the requirement. However, you can also do that through the online BNG portal so that you don't have to do it on paper, and I'll say a little bit more about that in a second. Where do you get the ASES Evidence Guide and Workbook? Email a request to us at the IP and we will send them through to you. Or if you already have a subscription to the BNG portal, you can access both of these documents in the reading room of the portal. Another resource that the IP has developed is the ASES Policies and Procedures Manual. You may find this useful if through the self-assessment process you find that your organisation has gaps in the policies and procedures it needs for ASES accreditation. Like the ASES support modules, this was developed by an external assessor that we hired as a consultant, and it's also available by email request to the IP. The BNG portal, for anyone who hasn't encountered this yet, BNG stands for Breaking New Ground Standards and Performance Pathways portal. Basically, this is an online tool that enables you to do the ASES self-assessment online. It allows you to upload all your evidence to a single place that you can easily access. You need a subscription to use the portal, but SHSs with an annual revenue of under 5 million are eligible for a free subscription through DIP. Lastly, in terms of resources and support for the SHS sector, you're always welcome to email or phone the IP team that deals with ASES accreditation. If you have any questions or challenges around ASES and you would like to bounce them off us and see if we have any ideas about how to help you with those, the details are on the slide there about how to get in touch with us. I'll now move on to recent updates from the New South Wales Department of Communities and Justice and the South Australian Department of Human Services related to ASES. DCJ made some announcements on the 29th of April that are related to the COVID-19 pandemic and the impacts of that. Anne Campbell, who is the DCJ Executive Director of Housing and Homelessness, spoke on a network webinar that we broadcast. She announced, in terms of recommissioning timeframes, that there'll be a 12-month contract extension to SHS contracts that were due to expire on the 30th of June 2020, and these will now run until the 30th of June 2021. She also talked a little about requirements to progress provider readiness activities under these contracts. Provider readiness activities include ASES, and what she said was there would be no requirement to progress these activities for 3 months from the 29th of April when she made the announcement. This is to give SHS providers the capacity to focus on essential service delivery and support for the most vulnerable people during the COVID-19 pandemic. Anne also said that DCJ will, where possible, work towards including provider readiness activity milestones in the upcoming 3 to 5 year contracts with SHS providers. And again, this is to recognise delays caused by COVID-19. If you'd like to hear more of what Anne said, you can access her presentation and her webinar slides on our Homelessness New South Wales website. Now to look at DHS updates. I'm just going to briefly address the transition from ASES version 7 to ASES version 8. So ASES is revised every so often to keep it up to date, and a version 8 is being introduced to align it with international standards. It's important to note that the transition from the current version 7 to version 8 will be gradual, and also that the changes will not be major. Services currently working towards compliance with version 7 shouldn't be impacted by the change, as they should still be able to be assessed against version 7 even if version 8 has been introduced. DHS has advised us of a timetable for implementing ASES version 8, and that is in May 2020, version 8 will be finalised, that's this month. Version 8 will not be introduced until January 2021. And then between January and June next year, self-assessments and site visits may still be undertaken against version 7, as long as you discuss this with the external assessor. Even after July 2021, if the self-assessment was undertaken before 2021, the SHS may still be able to be accredited against version 7. This would need to be approved by DHS on a case-by-case basis. DHS has let us know that these this timetable might be altered depending on how the COVID-19 pandemic plays out. So they're going to be flexible and assess what the impacts of the pandemic are on services. Now to part 3 of the presentation, I'm just going to spend a little bit of time talking about the IP's response to what we call the ASES Expression of Interest, or EOI survey. The background to this is that in December of last year, we sent out the ASES EOI survey, and it was open to complete until March until March of this year. The EOI targeted services interested in starting to prepare for ASES as soon as possible, and also smaller providers with an annual revenue under 5 million that might have fewer resources for ASES and might need longer to achieve accreditation. Respondents to the survey were asked to provide details of the systems and processes they have in place to prepare for ASES. We had a good response rate to the survey, and this created the need to triage the level of support we're offering to each organisation from to low, medium or high. So we went through all the responses we received and we assessed organisations as eligible for low, medium or high levels of support. The ones that were assessed in the medium or high categories are now receiving individualised support through ASES support meetings with the IP. Organisations in the EOI survey group are also being matched with others in that group to provide ASES peer support. This is because the pilot organisations who started ASES before the rest of the sector said one of the most useful things for them was to forge links with other organisations also in the pilot group, and they often met with those organisations and discussed their progress with ASES, and they got support and ideas about what to do from the other organisations. If you did not fill out the EOI survey, but you would like to have the type of opportunity that is currently being given to the EOI survey respondents, it's worth noting that we hope to offer up the supports provided to the EOI survey group to the rest of the sector in coming months. We just haven't done that yet because we need to manage how many organisations we're supporting so that it fits within our available resources. We are going to be holding ASES webinars bi-monthly, which means that the next webinar will be held in July 2020. And we're really interested in your topic ideas because we want to make the webinars as useful to you as possible. So please send those through to us if you do have any ideas. Thank you. That's the end of the IP update. And as I said, any questions you can send them through to our ASES support email address or phone the IP. I'd just like to thank everyone very much for attending this webinar, and we hope that you found it helpful. And I'd like to thank the presenters for agreeing to speak today and giving us their time. Everyone who attended from the SHS sector will be emailed a very short post-webinar evaluation survey. The purpose of this is to help us keep the webinars as useful to you as possible. We hope to see you next time at the next webinar in July and to hear from you about what will be most helpful at that webinar. Thank you very much.